God's chosen one. Heaven has pressed pause on everything around you just to deliver this word. Listen closely. There is a war happening in the unseen one that has your name on it. This isn't paranoia. This isn't emotion. This is a divine alert from the throne of heaven. You are under heavy spiritual attack. Not because you did something wrong. Not because you're weak. But precisely because you are chosen. Your very existence is disruptive to the forces of darkness. Your light is dangerous, and the enemy has picked up your scent. You've been marked by the oil of the Lord, and that oil makes you visible in both realms. What's hitting you right now, emotionally, physically, mentally, is a result of that mark. Beloved, this is not a normal season. The attacks are not coincidental. You didn't stumble across this message by mistake. This is not random timing. Heaven is issuing you an alert because something critical is at stake, and the spiritual warfare surrounding you is not imagined. It is real, and it is intensifying. You feel it in your body. You feel it in your spirit. You feel it when you wake up in the middle of the night for no reason. You feel it when your peace suddenly vanishes without explanation. These are signs, and they all point to one thing. You are chosen, and the enemy is terrified of what you're becoming. Let me make it plain. Spiritual warfare targets those who carry weight in the spirit. You are not like the rest. You were never built to blend in. Your obedience shifts atmospheres. Your prayers interrupt demonic timelines, and hell knows it. That's why the attacks have increased. That's why your name is in the enemy's mouth. He is sending confusion, fear, anxiety, doubt, temptation, whatever he can use to slow you down, wear you out, and get you to give up. But you won't, because you've been anointed for this. You were chosen for this exact moment in history. Your presence alone disturbs darkness. God has planted something inside you that cannot be muted, delayed, or extinguished unless you allow it. You're not watching this because you're curious. You're watching this because heaven is sounding the alarm. This is a prophetic interruption. God is cutting through the noise of your day to declare, get ready, arm yourself, speak, pray, and stand. Because when you don't speak, the enemy speaks for you. When you remain silent, the storm grows stronger. But when you open your mouth in faith, heaven rushes in to back your voice. Chosen one, you're under siege in the spirit realm, but you are not alone. Heaven is still with you. Angels have not left your side. The Holy Spirit is stirring even now. Do you feel it? That burning in your chest, that trembling in your spirit, that is the voice of the Lord calling you to rise. This is not about survival. This is about destiny. You are not being attacked because of your past. You are being attacked because of your future. The enemy sees what's ahead. He senses the doors that are opening. He sees the chains that are breaking because of your prayers, your presence, your purity, and your persistence. That's why he's panicking. That's why he's throwing every dart he has at you. But it will not work, because the same God who brought you through every previous valley, every betrayal, every silent tear, every sleepless night, he is not done with you yet. You are still here for a reason, and no weapon, no curse, no spell, no lie will prosper against you. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 17, no weapon that is formed against you shall prosper. and every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is from me, declares the Lord. This is not the moment to shrink back. This is not the time to pretend you're fine when your spirit is under fire. This is a wake-up call. You are needed. You are called. You are a spiritual warrior, not a casualty. And right now, you are being summoned by the throne of heaven to rise into position. Speak, pray, declare, cry out, prophesy over yourself. Stir up what God has placed within you. Don't wait for the storm to pass, command it to bow. Don't wait for the pain to lift, command healing now. Don't wait for peace to return. Declare that peace is yours through Christ, and take it by force. Do not let fear keep your mouth closed. Do not let the attacks mute your worship. Your voice is your weapon, and your prayer is your sword. This is the hour to speak before it's too late. If your spirit is stirred, if you know this message was for you, like, share, subscribe, and stay close. These words are not entertainment. They are spiritual survival, and you were never meant to battle alone. Comment 111 below to declare full alignment with the will of God over your life. Let the kingdom of darkness see Itan tremble. You've probably been wondering, why does it feel like everything around me is shifting, falling apart, or coming against me all at once? It's not your imagination. You're not being dramatic. And no, you're not cursed. What you're experiencing right now is spiritual warfare, but not just any kind. This is targeted. This is personal. And it's because you carry something that threatens darkness. The truth is, when you're chosen by God, you don't get to live a quiet life in the shadows. Your light stands out. You stand out. And that makes you a threat to everything that's hidden, fake, or demonic. You may not even realize how much your presence disturbs certain atmospheres. Sometimes you enter a room and feel the tension risen, not because of anything you said or did, but because your spirit walks in carrying truth, clarity, and holiness. And darkness can't hide when real light shows up. This is why the attack has intensified. You've probably noticed things getting harder right when you started praying more. You may have felt pressure the moment you decided to truly walk in obedience. The moment you said, God, I surrender. The enemy said, then I declare war. But this isn't a sign you're going the wrong way. It's confirmation you're finally on the right path. See, when you were living small, staying silent, blending in, there was no need for heavy warfare. You weren't doing damage to hell's plans yet. But now you're shaking things in the spirit. Now your voice carries weight. Now your prayers are piercing through layers of generational bondage. And hell knows it. You may not have seen the full picture of what God's doing in your life yet. But the enemy has caught a glimpse of it, and he's terrified. He's not attacking you for where you are. He's attacking you for where you're going. There's something on your life that's rare, sacred, set apart. You don't fit in because you weren't made to. You're not crazy for feeling different. It's part of your calling. You weren't meant to live a life of comfort. You were born for purpose. And that purpose comes with pressure. That pressure is not proof of punishment. It's proof that you're being prepared. But I get it. It's hard. You're tired. You're feeling the weight of invisible battles. You've cried prayers no one knows about. You've smiled through silent suffering. And you've shown up for others when your own spirit was barely standing. That's what makes you different. You carry weight in the kingdom, and that weight is why the opposition is real. But listen to me, you're not losing. You're learning how to war. Every restless night, every delay, every moment of doubt, it's sharpening your discernment. You're learning how to recognize spiritual attacks faster. You're beginning to sense when something is off. You're being trained by fire for a higher level of authority. And that's exactly what the enemy doesn't want. He doesn't mind people playing church. He doesn't mind empty religion. What he fears is someone like you who refuses to give up, even when it hurts, who chooses integrity over comfort, who keeps worshipping even in the middle of the storm. There's something holy forming in you right now. You may not see it clearly, but heaven does, and so does hell. That's why the attacks are so personal, because your obedience is breaking patterns that have existed in your family for generations. You're not just fighting for you, you're fighting for your bloodline. Chosen one. You are not weak. You are dangerous to darkness. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. Don't let fear lie to you. Don't let tiredness convince you to quit. And don't confuse spiritual pressure with personal failure. What's happening around you is spiritual. And you're not crazy for feeling it. Your discernment is sharp because you've been anointed for a time like this. This isn't a breakdown. It's a breakthrough being born. And you don't need to do anything extraordinary right now, except stay the course. Keep walking. Keep praying. Keep showing up. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to stay in position. Because heaven is fighting for you, even when you can't see it. This battle, you're not going through it alone. And you're not going through it in vain. You are chosen. You are seen. And you are already more victorious than you know. There's something different about you, and you've always known it. Haven't you? Even as a child. You could feel the weight of something you couldn't explain. A quiet awareness that you didn't quite fit in with the crowd. That your heart was drawn to deeper things. That while others could pretend, you couldn't ignore the stirring inside you. And now, as the spiritual attacks intensify, that feeling has only grown stronger. It's because you were never meant to live a normal life. You're not just here to exist, to float through life, to check boxes and move on. No, you're here to shift things, to break cycles, to carry heaven into spaces where darkness has been sitting comfortably for generations. That's why the warfare has been so loud lately. The enemy knows what's on you. He senses what you carry. You've been going through attacks that have no natural explanation because they're not natural. They're spiritual. The strange fatigue, the tension in your mind, the emotional waves out of nowhere, it's all part of a deeper conflict. And what's wild is, you're still standing. You've been stretched, pulled, tested, and maybe even tempted to give up. But something in you refuses to quit. You wake up every day with just enough strength to keep going, even if it's with shaky hands. That's not coincidence. That's evidence of God's grace holding you together in the unseen. You see, there's a reason hell is fighting you so hard. It's not about where you've been. It's about where you're headed. And the closer you get to stepping fully into your assignment, the more the pressure increases. But this isn't the time to panic. It's time to recognize what's happening. You are being refined. Through the struggle, God is shaping you. Through the resistance, He's sharpening your senses. Through the silence, He's strengthening your spirit, and it doesn't mean He's far away. In fact, the quietest seasons often produce the deepest roots, the ones that hold you steady when storms try to uproot everything around you. You've been walking through fire. Yes, but not to burn. You're walking through it to come out purified. Don't let your current pain blind you from the promise that's coming. This moment is not the end. It's the middle. And what feels like chaos is often just construction. God is building something in you that can't be rushed. It's easy to think you're falling apart, but the truth is, you're falling into place. You're being prepared for more. Not more attention, not more applause, but more authority, more impact, more spiritual weight. And that kind of power doesn't come cheap. The people you're called to impact need a version of you that's been through the fire and still chose obedience. And you are becoming that version right now. The most powerful people in the kingdom aren't always loud, polished, or perfect. They're often the ones who walk through quiet suffering, yet still say, "Yes, Lord." They've been wounded, but they still worship. Broken, but still believe. Tired, but still faithful. And that's what makes them dangerous to the enemy. You're becoming one of them. And no, you don't need to have all the answers. You don't have to fake strength when you're tired. You just need to keep showing up. Keep showing up for God. Keep showing up in prayer. Keep showing up in faith even when you're unsure. It's not perfection that shakes hell. It's persistence. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 19, "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all." Unquote. Did you catch that? Not some, not most, all. That means this situation won't swallow you. This season won't be your undoing. The Lord sees, and He will deliver. He hasn't left you. He's walking you through. So, right now, I want you to speak into this atmosphere with a simple declaration of faith. Comment, "I will stand." Say it out loud as you type it. If you can, speak it over your home, over your heart, over your future. These 3 words are not just a comment, they are a stand against every lie whispered to you in the dark. They are your reply to the storm. They are the line in the sand. Because when you write them, you're doing more than responding to a video. You're declaring to every principality that your faith is rooted, your spirit is anchored, and your purpose cannot be shaken. You're letting heaven and hell know, I may be pressed, but I won't fold. I may be tired, but I will not retreat. Because no matter what comes, you've already made your choice. You will stand. There's a reason the attacks haven't let up. You're not crazy for noticing that right when one storm passes, another one seems to roll in. It's like there's no time to breathe, no moment to fully rest before the next wave hits. But listen closely. What you're walking through right now is not about punishment, it's about positioning. You're being positioned for something bigger than your current view. And before God opens the door, He's making sure you're strong enough to stand in the room. See, spiritual warfare doesn't only show up when something is wrong. It often intensifies when something is right, when you've aligned yourself with purpose, when your heart has fully turned toward obedience, when you've said yes to heaven and no to compromise. That's when the resistance shows up, because that's when you're a real threat to darkness. It's easy to think the enemy attacks only because of your weaknesses, but often he comes after your potential. He sees the growth in you before you do. He notices how your discernment has sharpened. He sees that your prayers have shifted from self-centered to kingdom-minded. He hears the way your voice is starting to carry authority when you speak, and that terrifies him. Because once you realize who you are, once you truly see yourself through the lens of heaven, there's no stopping what God can do through you. And that's why the attack has gotten personal. It's hitting areas that matter most: your peace, your relationships, your focus, your hope. The enemy isn't just trying to frustrate you. He's trying to distract you because he knows distraction is often more effective than destruction. If he can't stop your purpose, he'll try to slow your progress. He'll try to keep you spinning in circles, overthinking, doubting, isolating, questioning. But you're waking up now. You're starting to recognize that not every thought is yours, that not every emotion belongs to you, that not every delay is natural. You're learning to test the spirits, to pause and pray before reacting. You're no longer letting your emotions lead you. You're letting the Spirit guide you. And that, right there, is spiritual maturity. That's growth. Growth doesn't always look like a platform. Sometimes it looks like walking away from a conversation that would have once triggered you. Sometimes it looks like choosing prayer over revenge. Sometimes it's simply staying silent and letting God defend you. And while the enemy keeps trying to provoke the old version of you, he's starting to see it's not working like it used to. That's a win. But with growth comes new tests. There will be moments when everything in you wants to slip back into old patterns, when the lies feel louder than the truth, when fatigue makes you forget your progress. That's where you must be anchored, not to your feelings, but to the word that was spoken over your life. You may not remember every prophecy, every confirmation, or every moment God whispered reassurance into your spirit, but your spirit remembers. It's what's carried you this far. It's what's kept you grounded when everything around you has shifted. You're not the same person you were a year ago, or even a month ago. You've endured things that could have broken you, and while others only see the surface, God sees the inner strength that's forming inside you. You've grown through silence. You've grown through betrayal. You've grown through isolation. And all of that has produced something, real something, deep. You no longer serve God out of fear. You serve Him out of love. You're not chasing blessings. You're chasing Him. You're not performing for approval. You're walking in identity. And that shift is dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. So when you feel the pressure rising again, when it feels like something is trying to throw you off course, remember this: you're not being pulled apart, you're being pulled into position. It's all strategic. The wilderness is not a punishment, it's preparation. God brought Moses through the wilderness before he led a nation. God brought David through caves before he sat on the throne. God allowed Joseph to be thrown into a pit before he stepped into the palace. The process has always included pressure, but the promise has always been worth it. Scripture says in the Gospel of John, chapter 16, verse 33, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." So don't let the trouble confuse you. Don't let the fire make you forget the favor. You're not just being attacked, you're being trained. And when this part of your story is done, you'll look back and see it. Not one tear was wasted. Not one battle was in vain. It all served a purpose. And that purpose is still unfolding right now. Right here. In you. Chosen one. The weight you've been carrying is real, but so is the assignment. You've been walking through fire with quiet obedience, battling things in secret that no one else sees. And yet, you're still here, still standing, still seeking God. That is not weakness, that is warrior strength. There are moments when the warfare feels endless. It's not just one battle, but layer upon layer, internal and external, spiritual and emotional. But what if I told you this is not evidence that you're failing? It's confirmation that you are rising. Heaven does not stay silent when warriors are being trained. Even in the silence, there is strategy. And right now, your spirit is being forged for something greater than comfort. You are not just surviving, you are being sharpened for impact. You've noticed it, haven't you? How things that used to satisfy you don't anymore. How conversations that used to distract you now feel hollow. How certain people are being pulled out of your life. Not because you're bitter, but because your spirit is shifting. That's not rejection, it's realignment. And it's happening because your life is no longer ordinary. You've been marked, not by people, not by titles, but by purpose. You carry something from heaven that cannot be copied or imitated. And that's why the enemy keeps coming after your voice, your time, your clarity, because if he can't destroy your calling, he'll try to drain your strength. But here's what he underestimated. You've been through too much to break now. You've seen too much of God's faithfulness to stop now. You've cried too many nights, prayed too many prayers, overcome too many storms to throw it all away. And even when you felt like you were on your last breath, God met you in those low places and whispered, "Not yet. I'm not done with you." Oh, so hear this clearly. He's still not done. You're not at the end. You're just in the middle of the molding. You're still becoming, still transforming, still rising into the person he saw from the beginning. The world sees the surface, but God sees the oil, and you, chosen one, are carrying oil. Not everyone will understand it. Not everyone will honor it. But those who are meant to walk with you will recognize the cost of it, because the oil on your life is expensive. It came through crushing, through pressing, through isolation. And that oil isn't just for you, it's for others connected to your obedience. That's why you can't afford to fall silent now. That's why you can't afford to back down, because someone else's breakthrough is on the other side of your faithfulness. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be willing. Even Jesus was met with resistance. Even he was misunderstood. And yet he pressed forward, because the mission wasn't comfort, it was impact. The Word of God declares in the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." So don't grow weary. Chosen one, the harvest is coming. But let's also be real. Carrying this kind of spiritual weight can feel lonely at times. That's why you're not meant to walk it alone. We're building something here, a space for warriors, for set-apart ones, for those who carry the oil of heaven and don't want to blend in with the world. If this message resonates with your spirit, if it speaks to the battles you've been fighting, don't keep it to yourself. Like this message so others can be reached by the same oil. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded they are not the only one under fire. Subscribe if you haven't already, because the next word might be the one you've been waiting for. And if this ministry has spoken into your life, consider sowing into it. Your support helps keep these messages flowing. reaching more chosen ones around the world who feel alone in their battle. Give only if God leads you. This isn't a demand, it's an invitation. Because we don't build for applause, we build for the kingdom. And when one of us gets stronger, we all rise. You are not just being encouraged, you are being equipped. Every word you've read today is a weapon in your hand. Every truth is another piece of armor. And as you begin to stand taller, walk bolder, pray deeper, heaven rejoices. Because one more warrior is rising in their full authority. So don't go back. Don't shrink. Don't apologize for your calling. And don't underestimate what God is doing in this exact moment. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are right where you need to be, in the middle of becoming unstoppable. There's something about the moment right before breakthrough that feels almost unbearable. It's the pressure, the silence, the heaviness you can't explain. The attacks get stranger. The isolation deepens. The fatigue lingers. And if you're not spiritually alert, you'll start to think you're doing something wrong. But chosen one, that couldn't be further from the truth. You're not off course. You're closer than you think. The enemy always hits hardest just before God opens something significant. It's not a coincidence that your mind has been under siege. It's not random that you've been feeling emotional waves you can't pin to anything in the natural. That's not your imagination. It's a signal. Heaven is near. But before God ushers you into new territory, He strips off every false comfort, every dependency, every shallow anchor. Why? Because where you're going, you can't afford dead weight. You can't afford distractions. You can't afford double-mindedness. God is calling you to be fully aligned, not partially. Not when it's easy. Not when you feel it. But now, this moment requires your full attention, your full surrender, your full voice. And the enemy knows it. That's why he's tried to send a fog over your thoughts. Why he's stirred up old temptations, old patterns, old wounds. He's hoping you'll go backward, hoping you'll settle, hoping you'll confuse resistance with rejection. But the enemy's strategy is collapsing. Because you're not who you were. You're wiser now. You don't panic like you used to. You don't chase after validation like you used to. You don't lose yourself in chaos like you used to. You've grown. And the fact that you're still standing in the middle of all this pressure, that's evidence of it. You've got a resilience that wasn't there before. You're not just surviving, you're discerning, watching, learning, listening, and most importantly, obeying. God's been drawing you into a deeper place. That's why He's been cutting away surface-level things. Some friendships have faded. Some routines have shifted. Even the way you used to pray has changed. He's not being distant. He's calling you deeper. This isn't rejection. It's refinement. Because you're not just any person. You're a chosen one. And with that calling comes consecration. That means separation, isolation, yes, even misunderstanding, but also glory, authority, power, clarity. You're not being left behind. You're being set apart. It was written in the book of Exodus, chapter 33. Verse 16, "What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth?" Moses understood it. And so must you. Your difference is divine. Your separation is sacred. Stop mourning what God removed. Stop craving what He's already called you out from. Stop doubting the process just because it doesn't look like others. This is not the season to blend in. This is the season to burn brighter. But to burn, God first has to empty the vessel. And that's what this pressure has been doing, emptying you of anything that would contaminate the oil, the pride, the fear, the desire to please, the need to be seen, the fear of being misunderstood, all of it being burned out, so only purity remains, the kind of purity that terrifies darkness. You may feel tired, yes, but heaven sees your consistency. Heaven hears your cry. Heaven watches the decisions you've made in private. Every time you chose prayer instead of panic, surrender instead of control, worship instead of bitterness, you were building altars in the spirit, altars that heaven honors, altars that have triggered war in the unseen. That's why it's been intense, because hell wants those altars torn down. But it's too late. You've already declared your yes. You've already stepped into the deep, and you're not going back. Right now, there is a moment hanging in the spirit, a call to agreement. Heaven has spoken. Hell has responded. Now it's your turn. Let the enemy know you are still aligned. Let heaven see you're still listening. Comme 444 below. Not for luck, not for hype, but as a prophetic sign of order, alignment, and foundation. 444, because your life is being rebuilt on something solid, something eternal, something no storm can shake. It is a declaration that your steps are not random, they are ordered. You're not guessing your way through this. You're not walking blind. You're being led by the Spirit, by truth, by fire. Let that number echo in the spirit realm. I am aligned. I am ready. I am marked. I will not turn back. Chosen one. This isn't just another hard moment. This is the birthing place of something holy. And yes, it's heavy. But so is your calling. There's a weight to being chosen that no one talks about. Most people celebrate the glory, the anointing, the calling, but they rarely speak of the pressure, the crushing that happens before the oil flows, the isolation that comes before the influence, the fire that burns before the light shines brighter. And you, chosen one, have been living that reality. It's not just about attacks anymore. It's the subtle weariness, the quiet stretching, the long, in-between moments where you're not where you were, but you haven't yet arrived where you're going. You're caught in the space where God is building things in silence, where everything around you looks still, but your spirit is working overtime. That's not an accident. That's intentional. God does his deepest work in the hidden place. Think about it. Seeds grow underground before they ever break the surface. Babies form in darkness before they're born into the light. And your spirit is going through that same process. Hidden, covered, yet fully active. In this season, you may not have a microphone or a stage. You may not be recognized or affirmed by many. But none of that matters, because you're being trusted with something that's not flashy but foundational. You're being trusted with the process, and that's where true authority comes from, not from visibility, but from submission, from saying yes when it's quiet, from choosing God when no one is watching, from obeying even when you don't get applause for it. The ones who walk in power are always the ones who walked through silence with faith. That's you. You've chosen to keep your heart tender even after betrayal. You've chosen to keep forgiving even when you weren't given closure. You've chosen to keep showing up for people even when you felt unseen yourself. And every one of those choices is counted in heaven. Not one sacrifice is wasted. Not one act of obedience is ignored. You're not overlooked. You're being watched by the only eyes that truly matter. God sees the nights you chose to pray instead of spiral. He sees the days you held back anger and chose peace. He sees the way you worship with tears running down your face. Not because everything is easy, but because you trust Him anyway. And that trust, that surrender, it's shaping you into someone unshakable. You are not being overlooked. You are being over-prepared. Because what's ahead of you isn't small. It's not ordinary. It's going to require capacity, not just charisma, depth, not just gifting. You're being trained to carry something that doesn't just look impressive, but breaks chains. And for that, you've had to be refined. God couldn't let you carry old patterns into a new assignment. He couldn't let you rely on people He knew wouldn't have the capacity to go with you. He had to tear down everything you thought you needed so that you'd realize it was always Him. And now that you're seeing that, your eyes are opening in a new way. You're no longer asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Now you're starting to ask, "Lord, what are you building in me?" That question shifts everything. It turns pressure into preparation. It turns waiting into worship. It turns discomfort into discipline. Because now you understand nothing in your life is wasted. Not the detours, not the losses, not the delays. It all serves purpose. Every ounce of pain is being pressed into purpose, and when it's time, what's been hidden will be revealed. But even then, your heart won't be chasing visibility. It will still be anchored in intimacy, because through the process, you've fallen in love with the one who never left. You've stopped seeking stages and started seeking His face. And that's when God can trust you with more. The Word of God declares in the book of Matthew, chapter 25, verse 21, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many." And you've been faithful in the quiet things, and God is watching. You've passed tests that no one else knew you were taking. And while it may not look like breakthrough yet, things are shifting around you even now. In the unseen realm, the ground is breaking. The roots are pushing deeper. The structure is forming, and the oil is rising. So keep going. Keep surrendering. Keep obeying in the silence, because when God moves, it will not be small, and it will not be late. It will be right on time. You've been walking through a season where it feels like God is distant. You've cried out, prayed earnestly, waited patiently, but the silence hasn't lifted. And if you're honest, there are moments when you wonder if heaven is even hearing you at all. But hear this clearly, God's silence is not His absence. You are not abandoned. You are not being ignored. You are being watched, carefully and lovingly, by a God who often works in the quietest places. This silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's where trust is deepened and spiritual muscles are stretched. It's where the noise of the world is stripped away so you can hear what truly matters. We often look for God in the thunder, the earthquake, the fire, something loud, something dramatic. But He speaks in the still, small voice, the kind you can only hear when you stop striving and start leaning in. That's what this season is teaching you, to stop chasing signs and start trusting His nature. You've matured past needing constant confirmation. You're learning to walk by faith, not by sight. And that's a sign of spiritual growth. You're becoming someone who doesn't just follow the feeling, but follows the word. In the hidden seasons, God is developing your ability to recognize His presence, even when it's not obvious. He's showing you how to sense Him in the subtle things, a moment of peace in the middle of chaos, a sudden calm in your spirit when everything around you feels unstable, a scripture that hits differently at just the right time. These are not small things. These are signals. You're being trained to pick up on divine signals. You're learning to be led, not just emotionally stirred. And this shift is critical because where God is taking you, you'll need to discern more than you see. You'll have to sense the Spirit, even when circumstances scream otherwise. You'll have to move in obedience when logic says, wait. You'll have to speak what He gives you, even if your voice trembles. That kind of discernment is cultivated in seasons just like this one. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's making you dangerous to darkness, because someone who can't be shaken by silence cannot be manipulated by fear. Someone who trusts God without constant reassurance can't be thrown off by spiritual warfare. Someone who listens in stillness doesn't panic when heaven isn't loud. God is building rootedness in you, not the kind of faith that sways with emotions, but the kind that holds steady when the storm hits. He's teaching you how to endure, not just for your own sake, but for the people you're called to lead, to love, to lift. And yes, you are being called to lead, not necessarily with a microphone or a platform, but with your life, with your integrity, with your consistency. You're the one breaking generational patterns, not just for your own freedom, but for those who will follow your example. You're carrying something heavy, but it's holy, and heaven is investing in your endurance. That's why the enemy has tried so hard to confuse you in this silence. He wants you to mistake quiet for abandonment. He wants you to lose your footing, to give up right before things shift, to assume nothing's working just because you don't see results. But in the kingdom, fruit grows underground first, and that's what's been happening in you. You've been growing deeper, stronger, wiser. Your roots have been wrapping themselves around the Word of God, around His promises, around His character. And soon, what has been unseen will break the surface. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 21, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, "This is the way, walk in it." All, you will hear that voice again. You will feel that clarity again. You will see the fruit of this obedience, even if right now it just feels like digging through dry ground. Don't be discouraged by the silence. Don't think the slowness means failure. God moves slowly on purpose because He builds things that last. Quick breakthroughs often fade, but what God is building in you will stand through every storm. It will outlive seasons, opinions, and even your emotions. So keep walking. Keep choosing to trust, even when there's no sign. Keep choosing faithfulness over frustration, because the silence isn't forever, but the strength you're building in it, that will last your whole life. You've been walking through a battlefield no one else sees. On the outside, people might think you're calm, composed, even blessed, but on the inside, your soul has been at war. You've been holding back tears in crowded rooms, smiling when your heart felt like it was breaking, showing up when everything in you wanted to disappear. And God sees it. He sees the battle behind your eyes. He sees the way you carry others in prayer while secretly wishing someone would do the same for you. He sees the way you keep going, not because you feel strong, but because you've decided that quitting isn't an option. And that choice, that quiet defiance against darkness, that's power. You don't need to shout to be a warrior. You don't need to be loud to carry authority. Sometimes, the most dangerous people in the spirit are the ones who fight in silence and worship in the dark. And that's you. You've become someone hell regrets, targeting, not because you've avoided pain, but because pain didn't stop you, loss didn't stop you, loneliness didn't stop you. You kept walking, and every step has been watched by heaven. But I need you to understand something. This battle is not just about your breakthrough, it's about your voice. The enemy has been after your voice for a reason. He knows your words carry life. He knows your prayers have weight. He knows your voice shifts atmospheres. And if he can keep you silent, he can keep others bound. Because the truth is, when you speak, things move. When you declare, things change. When you open your mouth, something shifts in the unseen. That's why the enemy has sent heaviness, confusion, isolation, shame, all designed to close your mouth. But you're not staying silent anymore. You've been quiet long enough. It's time to use the authority God has placed within you, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with boldness. This is the hour to speak, to release, to decree. You were not created to whisper in the presence of giants. You were not designed to be timid when darkness presses in. You were fashioned by the hands of God to stand, speak, and war with your voice. The kind of prayer you carry doesn't come from comfort, it comes from fire, from breaking, from surrender. And because of that, your words are laced with power. So speak over your home, speak over your mind, speak over your family, speak over your atmosphere. Speak truth where there have been lies. Speak peace where there has been torment. Speak clarity where there has been confusion, because heaven is backing your voice. It is written in the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. You don't have to shout. You don't have to perform. Just speak in alignment with God's word, and the atmosphere will bend to his authority flowing through you. The warfare has tried to mute you, tried to shame you into silence, tried to make you feel unworthy to pray, unqualified to speak, undeserving to declare. But the blood of Jesus already settled that. You are not speaking from perfection, you are speaking from position. A position of grace, of redemption, of divine authority. And right now, in this very moment, I want you to push past every feeling that says you don't matter. Push past every lie that says your words are empty, because heaven is waiting for your voice. And when you speak in faith, things change. So let the enemy hear you. Let the spirit world take notice. Comment, my voice matters. Mentama, 3 simple words. That's all. But those words carry weight when they come from your spirit. Because when you say, my voice matters, you're breaking years of insecurity. You're breaking word, curses spoken over you. You're canceling every lie that told you to stay small, stay silent, stay hidden. You're saying to heaven, to hell, and to yourself, I will speak. I will stand. I will not be muted. Your voice is not weak. It is not irrelevant. It is a weapon. Every word that comes from a surrendered heart carries authority in the Spirit. That declaration, "My voice matters," is not just for you. It unlocks freedom for others too, because when you rise in boldness, others find permission to do the same. Let it be known now, your silence was warfare, but your voice is deliverance. There's something powerful happening in you, even if you can't fully see it yet. The struggle you've been walking through wasn't meant to destroy you, it was meant to reveal you, to show you what's really inside, to show you that the same Spirit who raised Christ from the dead is alive and active in you. You've been pressed, but not crushed. You've been struck down, but not destroyed. And even though the enemy has tried to use delay, discouragement, and disappointment to wear you down, your spirit keeps rising, quietly, consistently, unshaken, because God is not just delivering you, He's raising you into someone who will deliver others. That's why the fire had to be hot. That's why the process had to be uncomfortable. You were never called to live a soft, compromised life. You've been called to walk in power. And power is only entrusted to those who've been refined. You've been trusted with pain, so you can carry healing. Trusted with silence, so you could learn to hear His voice clearly. Trusted with hiddenness, so pride would never take root. And now, even though the breakthrough hasn't fully arrived, your posture has changed. Your prayers have deepened. Your authority is different. And the enemy knows what's forming in you cannot be stopped. This is what God does with His chosen ones. He doesn't rush the process. He takes His time. He works slowly, precisely, thoroughly. Because He's not just preparing a moment for you, He's preparing a legacy through you. A legacy that outlives platforms. A legacy that transforms bloodlines. A legacy that crushes cycles of fear, addiction, shame, and rebellion and replaces them with freedom, clarity, wisdom, and holiness. You are part of that legacy. And every time you choose obedience over convenience, every time you keep praying when it feels pointless, every time you show up with an open heart instead of a hardened one, you're building something eternal. That's why this community matters. You're not walking through this alone. There are others like you, quiet warriors, holy rebels, kingdom carriers, people who have been misunderstood, overlooked, but not forgotten. People who are rising in obedience and power at the exact same time as you. And when we come together, our faith multiplies, our fire spreads, our voices shake things that darkness thought were secure. That's why these messages are going out, not just to encourage you, but to equip you. Because this isn't just a feel-better word. This is a wake-up call, a training ground, a moment of spiritual clarity. And if it's been speaking to your spirit, then lean in even deeper. Like this message, so that it reaches others in the middle of their fight. Share it if you know someone else walking through spiritual fire who needs to know they're not alone. Subscribe if you haven't already, because these words aren't coming from a script, they're coming from the secret place. And if God leads you, consider sowing into this ministry, not out of pressure, not out of obligation, but out of agreement. Because when you sow into where you're being fed, you're not just giving, you're partnering. You're helping this word reach other chosen ones across the globe who've been silently battling in the dark. Every time someone hears a word that calls them back to their purpose, heaven rejoices. And if you've received value here, consider being part of that ripple. But more than anything, stay locked in, because what God is doing in you doesn't end when the video ends. It keeps unfolding, day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice. And you're learning how to live from a different place now. You're no longer reacting to fear, you're responding to the Spirit. You're no longer striving to be seen. You're walking confidently in what God has already spoken over you. You're no longer defined by your pain. You're being shaped by the promise. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're not broken beyond repair. You're exactly where God has you, on the potter's wheel, in the fire, being molded into a vessel of power and purpose. The Word of God declares in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 7, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay, to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us." That treasure is in you. That power is in you, not earned, not achieved, but given, planted by the hands of a loving, intentional God who saw this exact season of your life before you even took your first breath. So don't look at yourself through the lens of what you've lost. Look through the lens of what you're becoming. You are being rebuilt from the inside out. You are being positioned for something sacred. And no, it hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it. Every flame has shaped you. Every silence has strengthened you. Every hidden season has prepared you. And now your light is ready to break through. Sometimes the most dangerous moment in the life of a chosen one isn't the beginning of the battle, it's the middle. The middle is where clarity starts to blur, where exhaustion sets in, and where faith is stretched beyond comfort. The middle is where the enemy whispers, "Did God really say?" and hopes you'll lay down your sword. And right now, you might be in that middle, not where you used to be, not yet where you know you're going. Just here, stuck between promise and fulfillment, between prophecy and manifestation, between breakthrough and what feels like endless resistance. But here's what heaven wants you to know. The middle is sacred ground. It's the proving ground of the faithful. It's where strength is built and motives are refined. It's where faith is no longer just an idea, it becomes your default. When you're in the middle and you still choose to pray, still choose to worship, still choose to trust, that's when you become unstoppable in the Spirit. The enemy loves to attack in the middle because he knows many give up there. It's easy to be passionate at the beginning, easy to testify when the miracle arrives. But what about now? What about when the waiting stretches longer than expected? What about when prayers seem to echo back in silence? This is where many lose heart. But you won't, because something in you has been anchored. Even when you question everything, there's still a spark in your spirit that says, "I can't quit now. I've come too far." That's not just grit. That's the Spirit of God keeping you upright when everything in the natural tells you to fall apart. You've been in the middle before, and you made it through. Remember the last storm you thought would break you, the moment you were convinced you wouldn't recover. Look at you now, still here, still breathing, still standing. That's proof not of your strength, but of God's. He doesn't abandon those He's invested in. He doesn't leave the ones He's refining. And you, yes, you are still in His hands. Maybe you haven't seen the full picture yet. Maybe you've only received fragments. But don't mistake partial vision for permanent limitation. God often reveals His plans piece by piece on purpose, not to confuse you, but to train your ear to listen, to trust, to follow, because obedience without full understanding, That's what unlocks the miraculous. You don't need to know how it all comes together. You just need to keep showing up, keep obeying, keep believing that what God started, He will finish even if the timeline looks different than you expected. It is written in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." End quote. That word is for you. There's a promise with your name on it. And the delay is not denial. The silence is not abandonment. The middle is not a grave, it's a greenhouse. Things are growing in you that cannot be rushed. Patience, endurance, wisdom, humility. These are the things that make you not just effective, but lasting. Many rise quickly and fall just as fast. But not you. You're being built to endure. You're being fashioned for longevity. And that's why it's taken time. There's something holy about the way God takes His time with His chosen. He's not interested in quick results. He's committed to eternal fruit. He's forming someone who won't crack under pressure, someone who won't crumble when misunderstood, someone who can carry His presence with purity, not pride. And that takes time. So if you're in the middle, don't rush it. Don't despise it. Let it work on you. Let it strip away what's not eternal. Let it awaken what's been sleeping in you. Let it refine what pride once hid. The wilderness always feels longer than it is. But it's not forever. You're not stuck. You're becoming. And when this season ends, and it will, you'll see that what God built in you was far more valuable than what you were waiting for. Because the breakthrough is beautiful. But the person you become through the process, that's where the real glory is. God isn't just answering prayers, He's answering identity. He's building someone who can carry weight, lead with grace, and walk in authority without losing their soul. Chosen one. The middle is not where you give up. It's where you rise. There's a shift taking place in the spirit realm. And if you've been feeling unsettled lately, restless, emotional, sensitive, without knowing why, it's not random. It's spiritual. Something is breaking open over your life. And your spirit can feel it before your mind understands it. That stirring you feel, that's the signal. Heaven is moving. And so must you. You're not who you were. And the warfare you're experiencing now is a response to that transformation. Because the enemy doesn't attack who you used to be. He attacks who you're becoming. And right now, you're stepping into territory that your bloodline never claimed. You're beginning to walk in authority that's been dormant for generations. And that's why it feels so heavy, because the cost of being chosen is spiritual resistance. You're not just breaking personal habits, you're breaking ancient cycles. This isn't just about you anymore. Your yes to God is echoing through your family line, through your children, through every person who's ever watched you fight in silence. And that's what makes this war so critical. Because if the enemy can wear you out now, he can delay everything that's meant to flow through you. But you're not going to fold. You're not going to give in. Because your roots go deeper than the pressure around you. You're learning that strength is not how loud you roar, but how deeply you remain. You don't have to feel powerful to be powerful. You just have to stay aligned. Even now, in your questions and your fatigue and your wrestling, your heart is still positioned toward God. And that's enough for Him to keep breathing on your process, to keep covering you in grace, to keep sending angels to war on your behalf. You're being protected, even in ways you don't see. God has blocked attacks that never reached your door. He's closed doors that would have wounded you. He's allowed certain delays not to harm you, but to protect your spirit while He strengthens your frame. You've been in a stretching season. And while it hasn't been easy, it has been fruitful. You may not have seen the full harvest yet, but the soil is rich now. The weeds have been pulled, the distractions removed, the noise silenced. Your focus is clearer, your hunger is purer, your faith is sharper, and that's what makes you ready. You don't need perfect conditions to thrive. You just need to be aligned with God's timing, and that's exactly where you are. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not too broken. You are right on schedule for what heaven has prepared. It is written in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. This is your time to rise differently, not out of emotion, not out of performance, but out of a holy conviction that you are marked for more clarity, more depth, more obedience, more purpose. But with that, more comes greater responsibility. You can't afford to live casually anymore. You can't afford to keep entertaining things that dull your spirit. You've come too far to go back. And heaven is requiring a deeper level of yes from you now. So take this moment to affirm your agreement. Let the spirit realm know that you're still standing, still believing, still aligned. Comment 555 below as a prophetic act. This number is not just a symbol, it represents grace upon grace, triple grâce. Grace to finish what you started, grace to keep going, grace to move forward even when it feels heavy, grace that covers what you cannot fix, grace that restores what you thought was lost, grace that opens doors no man can shut. When you type 555, you're declaring, I'm still here, I'm still chosen, I still say yes. You're reminding your spirit, heaven, and hell that your agreement with God is intact. And that, yes, it's the most dangerous thing you can give heaven, because it's the one thing hell cannot stop. Not your talent, not your knowledge, but your obedient yes. So type it boldly, type it with faith, type it even if your voice is shaking, because 555 is not just a number, it's a sound of surrender in the spirit, a mark of alignment, a prophetic echo that says, my life is not random, my pain has purpose, my breakthrough is near. You're not just typing a number, you're prophesying your posture. There are battles you're fighting right now that didn't begin with you, but they will end with you. You didn't choose this war, but God chose you to finish it. You were born into a family, a region, a generation marked by patterns, fear, dysfunction, silence, addiction, compromise. These cycles repeated, quietly passing from one life to the next, unchallenged, until you may not have known what it was at the time, but you've felt it for years, the invisible weight, the pressure, the heaviness that wasn't just emotional, but spiritual, something deeper, something that went beyond your personal story. That wasn't your personality, that was your calling, pressing on you before you even had language for it. Because God always knew what He put inside you. He knew what you'd be able to endure. He knew what you'd have to overcome. And He knew your spirit wouldn't break, it would rise. That's why the warfare came early. Why the enemy targeted your identity before you could speak. Why trauma knocked on your door when you were still figuring out who you were. Because the enemy recognized the mark on your life before you did. and he tried to stop you before you could stand up. But it didn't work. You're still here. You've been through the valley. You've walked through shadows most people will never know about. But God preserved you not just for survival, but for legacy. This is bigger than your personal freedom. Your obedience is shifting the trajectory of bloodlines. Your willingness to surrender is ending curses. Your decision to walk with God is creating space for others to run where you had to crawl. You're not just breaking cycles, you're building something new. And even if it doesn't feel dramatic, even if your progress feels slow, don't miss the power in it. You are choosing life where others chose fear. You're choosing purity where others chose compromise. You're choosing truth even when it costs you relationships and comfort. That matters. In fact, that obedience is shaking things in the unseen realm, because the enemy doesn't panic over perfect people. He panics over surrendered ones, over the ones who whisper, "Yes, Lord," when no one's watching, over the ones who worship when they're weary, over the ones who keep showing up when their hearts feel empty. You are that one. The enemy has tried to convince you that someone else would be better for this, more qualified, more visible, more spiritual. But God's choice has nothing to do with outward strength. He's looking for hearts he can trust, and yours is one of them. It is written in the book of Romans, chapter 5, verse 19, "For just as through the disobedience of the one man the many were made sinners, so also through the obedience of the one man the many will be made righteous." Lamb, don't underestimate what your obedience is unlocking. Even when no one sees, even when no one claps, even when you feel ordinary, heaven sees it all. Heaven honors it all. And the ripple effect of your obedience is touching places you haven't even stepped into yet. You are someone else's answered prayer, and your life is becoming a seed planted not just for your future, but for those who come after you. Generations are shifting because you chose to stand. This isn't about hype. This is about legacy. This is about impact. This is about finishing what darkness hoped would go unnoticed. You are not the broken link. You are the turning point. You are not the overlooked one. You are the interruption. You are not the failure. You are the first one to say no to what used to be normal. So, don't stop now. You're not just breaking chains, you're building altars. Altars of truth. Altars of worship. Altars of surrender. And they will last. They will outlive you. They will bless those who will never know your name, but will walk in the freedom you fought for in secret. Your tears are watering seeds of deliverance. Your quiet obedience is laying foundations for homes you'll never live in, families you'll never meet, and prayers you'll never hear. And that's the beauty of being chosen. Your reward isn't just in what you receive, but in what you release for others. Keep going. Chosen one. Keep standing. Keep obeying. Because what you're doing now is shifting history, and history doesn't remember comfort, it remembers courage. There's a kind of weariness that doesn't come from physical exhaustion, but from carrying too much for too long in silence. A soul-deep tiredness that settles in your chest not because you're weak, but because you've been strong for too many days in a row. You know what it's like to be the one others depend on, to carry the weight in prayer, to smile when you feel like screaming, to encourage others while wondering if anyone can truly see you. You've walked with God through dark valleys that made no sense at the time, and you've obeyed, even when obedience cost you more than you imagined. And yet, here you are, still standing, still seeking, still surrendered. That's not ordinary strength. That's evidence of grace. But hear this clearly. Chosen one, you were never meant to carry the whole weight alone. God called you to carry the mantle, not the burden. There's a difference. The mantle is divine. It empowers, equips, and covers. But the burden, that's what we take on ourselves when we start believing the outcome depends entirely on us. When we confuse stewardship with control, when we forget that God never called us to save everyone, solve everything, or hold it all together by sheer will. You are anointed. Yes, but you are also human, even Jesus perfect, holy, and divine had to withdraw and rest. He carried the weight of the world, but he didn't carry it with anxiety. He carried it with intimacy, with trust in the Father. And that's the invitation to you right now, to stop holding what heaven never asked you to carry alone. You've been faithful. You've said yes. You've pressed through fire and fog and fatigue. But God isn't asking you to strive. He's asking you to trust. There's a kind of peace that doesn't come from solving everything. It comes from surrendering everything. Not in weakness, but in wisdom. Not in fear, but in reverence. When you let go, you make room for God to be God. Because when we hold too tightly to outcomes, we limit what heaven wants to do through us. We begin to rely on our own strength, our own understanding, our own timeline, and that's when the pressure turns into torment. But your Father is not a taskmaster. He's not demanding performance. He's inviting partnership. You're not a soldier abandoned on a battlefield. You're a son, a daughter, a royal heir, and you're fighting with heaven, not for it. You've made it this far not because of your strategy, but because of your surrender. So now, in this moment, breathe. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You don't have to carry every burden in your family, your workplace, your community. God is raising others too. He's sending reinforcements. He's opening doors you don't have to push open. He's healing places in you that don't need fixing. They just need rest. It was written in the book of Psalms, chapter 68, verse 19, Praise be to the Lord, to God our Savior, who daily bears our burdens. Oh, he bears the burden, not you. You're called to release, not to retain. And sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is simply breathe out what you've been holding in, to sit in stillness, to let your soul exhale, to remember that God's timeline isn't rushed, and His promises aren't fragile. He doesn't need your pressure, He wants your presence. There are things you've been praying for that aren't being delayed, they're being protected. You think the pause means God forgot. But what if it means He's preparing something better? You think the quiet means He's far. But what if it means He's closer than ever, refining your spirit, so that when the promise arrives, your soul is ready to hold it? This is the season of sacred exchange. Your heaviness for His peace, your urgency for His timing, your striving for His strength. And the moment you surrender control, you'll feel it, the tension lift, the breath return, the awareness that you were never meant to carry this alone. Chosen one, you are not falling behind. You are being recentered. God is restoring your soul, not just to keep you going, but to make you whole. He's peeling back the layers of pressure, the lies of urgency, the fear of not being enough. He's bringing you back to the place where identity comes before activity, and intimacy matters more than performance. So, lay it down, not in defeat, but in faith. Not because you're giving up, but because you're growing up. Because you don't win by doing more. You win by trusting deeper. There's a moment in every spiritual journey when God begins to draw a clear line between who you've been and who you're becoming. That line doesn't just appear overnight. It forms through fire, obedience, and surrender. And chosen one, you're standing on that line right now. You're not the same person who entered the last storm. There's a depth in you now, a sharpness, a maturity, and the enemy knows it. That's why the pressure has intensified. That's why old temptations are reappearing. Because this next push in the spirit is the one that brings manifestation, and hell is terrified of what happens if you don't quit. But you won't. You've come too far. You've been forged in silence, shaped in pain, strengthened in hidden places. You've stood your ground when no one clapped. You've whispered, "Yes, Lord," when your voice was shaking. And now you're carrying something that cannot be counterfeited. Spiritual authority. This next chapter isn't just about blessings, it's about positioning. God is placing you in spaces where your presence alone will break strongholds, where your discernment will shift atmospheres, where your prayers will reroute generational patterns. This is not the time to fall back. This is the time to step fully in. No more apologizing for your anointing. No more shrinking to fit places God never told you to stay in. No more pretending you don't feel the weight of the call. Because the weight isn't punishment, it's evidence of trust. God has seen your consistency, your hidden obedience, your quiet surrender, and heaven is responding. He's setting you in place. He's positioning you among those who are also carrying oil. Not hype, weight, not noise, substance, not performance. We find in the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 1, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." You're being called to arise not just emotionally, but spiritually, not just for your sake, but for those who are waiting on the other side of your yes. Because make no mistake, your obedience is a breakthrough key for someone else's deliverance. That's why staying connected matters. These aren't just videos or words on a screen, they're prophetic blueprints, divine alerts, holy reminders. This space is being carved out for those who are truly called, for those who feel the fire and refuse to be silenced by the pressure. If this message is resonating in your spirit, like it so others can find it in the middle of their own fire. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that obedience still matters. Subscribe to stay aligned with future messages. This is more than a feed, it's a flow. Comment 888 below as a prophetic act of agreement. 8 represents new beginnings. When you type 888, you're not just responding to a message, you're declaring full alignment with the season God is drawing you into. A season of clarity, purpose, fire, and favor. A season where old chains lose their grip and divine timing accelerates your path. It's your way of saying, "I agree with heaven. I receive what's next." And if this word has poured into your life, consider sowing back into the work. Every offering, no matter the size, helps carry this mission to more people, people who are still in the fight, still waiting for confirmation, still trying to find their voice again. You're not just giving, you're planting into someone's breakthrough, You're watering a word that might reach someone at the exact moment they need it most. That's more than generosity. That's obedience in motion. We're building an altar here, word by word, message by message. And every time you share, comment, give, or simply engage, you're helping expand a space that darkness cannot silence. Because this isn't about fame, it's about faith. And right now, you're being called into more conviction, more boldness, more discernment, more authority. You're not just being encouraged, you're being equipped. This is your moment to silence the doubt, to shake off the residue of old seasons, to walk forward with a holy confidence that says, I'm not who I was. I'm who God says I am. You've survived too much to retreat now. You've seen too much of His goodness to second guess now. You've carried too much fire to stay quiet now. This is your launching moment, not in the natural, but in the spirit. And when heaven moves, everything else will follow. Comment 1888 below. Like, share, subscribe, and, if you are led, sow into what's feeding your spirit. Because this movement isn't just happening around you, it's rising in you. Sometimes the greatest shift in your life doesn't start with something seen, it starts with something felt. A quiet awareness that something in you has changed. You don't react the way you used to. You don't crave what you used to chase. You don't run back to the places you once called safe. That's the evidence of growth, of maturity, of transformation. It happens quietly beneath the surface, without applause, without warning, but it's real, and it's happening in you. That ache you've been feeling in your spirit, it's not depression, it's not burnout, it's a holy stretching, a divine pulling. Your spirit knows that where you are is too small for where you're going. And even though your surroundings haven't shifted yet, your spirit already has. You've outgrown the old wineskin. You've outgrown the shallow, the surface, the comfortable. What once satisfied now feels hollow. What once distracted you now grieves you. That's not something to resist, it's something to recognize. You're stepping into your next level. And that always starts in the secret place. Because elevation in the kingdom doesn't start with exposure, it starts with encounters. It starts with God breaking, building, and reshaping you in places no one else sees. It's not glamorous. It's not always comfortable, but it's always necessary. You don't need the crowd to see what God is doing. You don't need the platform. You don't even need validation. When God is moving, He moves in silence first. Like the seed breaking through soil, the real change starts before anyone claps or notices. That's what's happening now. And because of that shift, you may find yourself feeling disconnected from what used to feel like home. Relationships that once fit now feel misaligned. Conversations you used to enjoy now feel empty. Places that once brought comfort now feel foreign. That doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're being called. Called into deeper territory. Called into higher standards. Called into fuller alignment with the will of God. Not everyone can go where you're going. Not everyone wants to. And that's okay. There's no bitterness in that, only clarity. When God shifts you, He shifts your circle too. Not out of cruelty, but out of protection. Because the version of you that's emerging now needs space to breathe, to grow, to walk freely without apology. You're not being distant. You're being refined. And with that refinement comes a new level of discernment. You've started to sense things differently. You can feel when a room is off. You can pick up when someone's words don't match their spirit. You're no longer impressed by titles, you're drawn to truth. That's not arrogance. That's spiritual awareness. And it's necessary. Because where God is leading you, you won't just need faith, you'll need wisdom. You won't just need passion, you'll need precision. And He's been training you for that, quietly, moment by moment, battle by battle. Even your mistakes have been part of the shaping. God never wasted your failures. He used them. Every misstep became a lesson. Every disappointment became a doorway into deeper intimacy with Him. Every delay became a classroom in trust. Nothing was wasted, not even the pain. It is written in the book of Job, chapter 23, verse 10. But He knows the way that I take. When He has tested me, I shall come forth as gold. You are coming forth as gold, refined, radiant, solid, not perfect, but proven. That's what God is after, not your image, not your performance, but your substance. And now, the oil is rising, the clarity is increasing, the fire is steady. What's being born in you is no longer fragile. You've been through too much to go back now. You've seen too much of God's faithfulness to doubt Him now. You've grown too deep to be shaken by shallow noise. And maybe you can't explain the fullness of this shift to anyone, but that's okay. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You owe God your obedience. And that's what you're giving Him. Even when it costs you comfort, even when it costs you connections, even when it costs you control. Because now you understand. It's better to walk alone in obedience than be surrounded in compromise. You're not isolated. You're being insulated by the Spirit. You're not behind. You're being hidden for the right time. You're not losing anything worth keeping. You're being positioned for everything God has promised. So take a breath. You're not falling apart. You're falling into alignment. And what's on the other side of this season? Unshakable clarity, uncompromising peace, undeniable favor. You're right on time, chosen one. You've come a long way, and not just in distance, but in depth. You may not have noticed it day by day, but if you look back with clear eyes, you'll see the undeniable truth. You are not who you used to be. There's been a change, a slow, sacred turning. God didn't rush it. He didn't force it. He allowed life, pain, pressure, and grace to shape you from the inside out. And now, standing here, you're carrying something eternal, something weighty, something holy. This has never just been about breakthrough. This has always been about becoming. You've been learning how to walk in obedience when it's hard. You've been learning how to discern truth when lies scream louder. You've been learning how to worship without needing answers. You've been learning how to stay faithful when everything in you wanted to disappear. And in all that, God has been proving Himself faithful. He's walked you through the fire not to burn you, but to brand you. Because now, there's a mark on your life that no one can erase. You've earned no titles, gained no earthly crown but in the Spirit. You've taken ground that no one can take from you, not because of perfection, but because of your posture. You stayed surrendered when you didn't have to. You chose holiness when compromise seemed easier. You walked alone when others took the easy road, and heaven took notice. This final stretch you're in, no, it's not a breakdown. It's a birthing. Something new is being released through your life. It's not coming from hype. ambition, or striving. It's coming from the yielded place, the part of your heart that has been softened by trial and shaped by trust. The part of you that no longer needs to control the process, but simply follows the presence. And this is what hell fears, not a loud believer, but a rooted one who doesn't flinch when the enemy presses, one who's been through the fire and didn't lose their voice, one who doesn't just quote scripture, but lives it. That's you. You're not fragile anymore. You've been through enough to know what's real. You've been through enough to know who He is. And even though the path ahead is still unfolding, your spirit is no longer anxious, because you're not leaning on signs. You're walking by faith. You're not looking for open doors. You're following the voice behind you saying, "This is the way. Walk in it." It's written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 21, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" Oh, that voice is still speaking. Even now, as your life begins to shift again, new assignments, new clarity, new responsibility. It's that voice that will guide you, not the opinions of others, not the fear of failure, just Him. Because your greatest strength now is not in what you know, but in who you trust. You've walked through silence and didn't walk away. You've lost things that mattered and still chose to praise. You've been misunderstood, misused, and yet you've guarded your heart from bitterness. And that right there, that's victory. Quiet victory. The kind that doesn't post loudly but shakes the spirit realm deeply. You've learned to be dangerous to darkness without announcing it. You've learned to be faithful in private and let God promote in His time. You've learned that obedience is not a moment, it's a lifestyle. So now, as you move forward, let this truth settle in your bones. You don't have to chase what you've already been assigned. You don't have to prove what heaven already confirmed. You don't have to force what's already in motion. Your job now is simple. Stay aligned. Stay close to the one who called you. Stay soft when life wants to harden you. Stay bold when fear tries to creep in. Stay consistent when nothing feels exciting. Because there is a crown waiting for those who endure, not just those who start strong. You're almost there. And when the moment comes, when the doors open, when the weight lifts, when the promise begins to unfold, you won't rise in arrogance. You'll rise in gratitude. You'll walk in humility. You'll move in power that came not from hype, but from history, your history with God. This has been long. It's been heavy, but it's also been holy. And you are ready now, not just to carry the promise, but to steward it well. You are not leaving this season empty. You're leaving with oil. Chosen one. If you made it here through every word, every section, every moment of conviction and clarity, then this wasn't just content for you. It was a confirmation. You weren't called to blend in. You weren't called to live bound by fear, confusion, or cycles that keep repeating. You were chosen to rise. And every step you've taken on this journey through the silence, the warfare, the hidden places has been preparing you for what heaven is about to release. This isn't the end. This is the activation point. You're not leaving empty. You're leaving equipped. But don't walk away in silence. Mark this moment. Declare your agreement publicly and prophetically. Comment, "I receive it." Just 3 words. but they speak volumes in the spirit realm. When you write them, you are sealing the word over your life, letting both heaven and hell know, I've heard it, I believe it, I receive it. Then, like this message, if something in you was stirred, share it with someone else walking through the fire. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because what's ahead will take you even deeper. And if you feel led, sow into the soil that's feeding you. Your support helps us keep reaching the silent ones, the tired ones, the chosen ones across the world. This isn't about hype. It's about heaven. And right now, heaven is still moving through you. Stand tall. Speak boldly. Move forward. You are chosen. You are marked. You are ready.